Hi, I'm Jordon Taylor with the Corporate Training Companion, and I help new and aspiring corporate trainers learn and apply the modern fundamentals of corporate training. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell button so you get notified whenever new content is posted. That said, we need to talk about some of the science behind corporate training. So here's a little history about me. In college, I took a course called Learning and Motivation. Just like it sounds, the course was all about how mostly humans, but some animals too, learn and what motivates them to move into one direction versus another. So yes, there were rats, and yes, there were mazes, and even Pavlov's dog, but there was also Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I always thought Maslow's hierarchy of needs was super interesting, because at its surface, it's this model that suggests that humans have this set of needs that need to be met in this particular order. But when I look a little bit deeper, I also see a blueprint for what motivates people. And that blueprint can be a useful tool in the corporate classroom. So let's talk through one, who Maslow is and where this model came from. Two, break down the model itself and get a better understanding of it. And then three, I'll share some thoughts on how it can be applied in the corporate training world. So let's get started. In 1943, Abraham Maslow, an American psychologist, published a paper called A Theory of Human Motivation. And that paper later became one of the most utilized models in psychology, the hierarchy of needs. Now, the hierarchy of needs is typically represented as a pyramid like this. Each level, starting at the bottom, builds on top of the next, suggesting that you can't move up a level without first obtaining the level that you're on. So as you can see, it starts with physiological. These are your basic necessities for life, like food and water and shelter, air, necessities that until 10,000 years ago, humans didn't really have. The next step is safety. This step represents having a steady income, reasonably good health, and generally consistent, reliable safety. Not to say that nothing bad or unsafe ever happens, but it's the exception, not the rule, and not what you need to spend the majority of your day working on or worrying about. Now, the third step is love and belonging, and this is where relationships come into play. You've got family ties, and if not family, it may be a community, or you may even have a tribe of people that you have some sort of connection with. It's here that you can really start to see where Maslow was coming from with how these build on top of one another. It would be difficult, for instance, to focus on getting a job if all your focus is on where your next meal is coming from or finding drinkable water. It's hard to build relationships or families when you feel unsafe or you have no stability, no consistency in employment, or a stable living situation. But once you have all of that, you can build up to the next step, esteem. This includes feeling valued and competent and gaining respect and recognition from others. And of course, these feelings are all the direct results of relationships built with family and community in the love and belonging stage. Again, this highlights how these just build on top of one another. That brings us to the top and final stage in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization. Because you have all of these other foundational building blocks in place, you're free to pursue becoming the best version of yourself. And while everyone's pursuit will look a little bit different, maybe some will start a business, some will find ways to give back to their communities, some will turn to art and other forms of expression, and others will focus on mind and body. You could pursue all of these things or any combination of them. So that's my quick introduction to Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. Now, do I believe that Maslow had corporate training in mind when he published this? No, of course he didn't. But I do believe there are parallels that we can learn from. But when I think about this, I'm not thinking about it from the very broad lens of someone's total life experience like Maslow did. I'm thinking about it through a much more narrow lens. Still experiential, but it's more the experience of training, which could be an onboarding experience, it could be a series of leadership courses, or it could even be a one-off continuing education course. So let's talk through a few of the ideas I have for how this model can be applied in the corporate training world. Starting with psychological needs. It probably goes without saying, but you should have a comfortable room setup. Not ridiculously hot or cold, with running water, maybe offering snacks or meals if possible, but at a minimum allowing time for food, especially when delivering longer sessions. It's things like that. Pretty basic. But in the second level, safety, this is where I think things start to get a little more interesting. Now remember, a steady income is achieved there. Not just shelter, but a home. Not just physical, but psychological safety. They're all achieved at this level. And while we don't have full control, we do have some influence in these areas. And I believe that's worth being mindful of. Creating a safe environment and onboarding where honest mistakes are welcome and not discouraged. Setting house rules to be respectful and immediately addressing situations where those rules are broken. And just generally setting a good example with healthy boundaries for your participants. These are practical ways that you can help build a training environment that feels safe. Now, there's also a number of ways that we can influence the third stage, belonging. Things like helping participants build connections and sometimes even communities. I've experimented with a lot of approaches in this area, but the ones that seem to have had the most impact are these 5. In multi-day trainings, for instance, I love bringing in past trainees to tell their story about how the training helped them. This really drives home the influence of social proof that I can't drive home myself. And it provides the class with another resource that they can lean on later on after the training. In onboarding, I always love bringing in leadership into the classroom. If I saw presidents or senior managers walking in the hallways, I'd always ask them to stop in and say hello to the class. Getting those hellos from senior leaders in your first few days with the company really helps set the tone of that community or family environment that so many companies are looking for. Buddy systems can also be great tools to help build bonds. And even though sometimes they're a little bit cringy, when done right, icebreakers can be a really useful way of breaking down barriers early on and getting people connected. The same goes for group activities. Last, and probably my favorite, is incorporating company values into your training. I've done this with both onboarding and continuing education. The benefit lies in that your company values are supposed to be a shared mindset of the community, i.e. the company in this case, leveraging those shared values, and it instantly reinforces that sense of community. Super meta, I know. Which brings us to Esteem. Very straightforward, I think, because Esteem is all about confidence, recognition, and a sense of achievement. So using positive reinforcement when participants are doing things right, but also positively reinforcing engagement in the training. Asking a question in front of a group, providing an answer in front of the group, sharing an opinion in front of the group. All of these put the participant in a vulnerable and potentially awkward position. A little positive reinforcement. I appreciate that thought. Thank you for sharing that. Sayings like this can go a really long way. Because we want to encourage them to build their confidence and participate again, use these types of phrases. And then beyond positive reinforcement, there's recognition. Recognizing achievements with badges and gamification, certificates, or just celebrating milestones. It doesn't need to be anything over the top. It doesn't even need to be public. And there's plenty of opportunity to get creative with this approach. Which brings us to our top and final stage, self-actualization. remembering that self-actualization is the pursuit of becoming the best version of ourselves, and that people tend to lean into things like giving back to their communities, mastering a new skill, or leveraging some sort of creativity. There's a lot of opportunities to help influence this within our narrow training experience lens. I relate this to helping advanced learners, those outliers in a good way that have everything you're teaching just down pat because it comes simply to them, which means they're running the risk of getting bored. So, thinking about the idea of giving back, you can assign them to help out someone who's struggling, or make them the leader of a breakout group or a mini team, ideally with people that are struggling. For the idea of skill mastery, assign them an advanced project. This might even scratch that creativity itch for them. You can also have them redesign sections of the training from the perspective of the learner, but it's best to include them in the process of deciding what they should work on. Provide them with options and ask them for their preferences and just see where it goes. So there you have it, a quick breakdown of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and some practical tips for application. From physiological to self-actualization and how it can be related to the corporate classroom. I hope you found this helpful. And if you did, don't forget to click that like, subscribe, and bell icon so you can stay up to date with future videos. I'd also love to hear how you leverage this model. So I encourage you to share your best practices in the comments below. I'm Jordon Taylor with the Corporate Training Companion. Until next time.